that, we will go into our new experimental section now. We're going to do something called the Employee Picks. We're going to talk about older movies, and I'm going to start with the original Bad Lieutenant, starring Harvey Keitel and directed by Abel Ferrara. Came out in 1992. Okay, so this movie has a very similar plot as the one, Protocol New Orleans, that we talked about just before. Here, Harvey Keitel plays a dirty, corrupt cop. And he just has his life in shambles. Nothing is the way it should be. He's, unlike the Protocol New Orleans, he's married and has kids, but he's also dealing in prostitution. He has a heavy-duty drug habit, and he has gambling debts that he just can't seem to take care of, and it's always kind of coming up behind him, and he never knows when to stop. But then in the middle of this, there is a case he is trying to solve with the rape and attempted murder of a nun. And through this, he's trying to sort of find self-redemption in all of this crazy mess that is his life. He's very Catholic, as you can tell, or was raised in Catholicism. And so there's this weird Catholic guilt that he's feeling, as well as almost a hatred and spite of his upbringing because of what he's become. And I feel as though this movie is a lot more successful at what it was going for than Werner Herzog's remake. Mostly because this movie is first, most and foremost, a character study. And it's a very loyal one. Whereas the Herzog one kind of forgets what it's trying to do or trying to say in places, and the story starts to sag and get sort of confused. I feel like this one knew exactly what it wanted to do from point A to point B. It's a simple movie, and it's a very uncomfortable movie. This movie is NC-17, probably one of the first, and has no qualms about it. It is not trying to be an R-rated movie. It knows that it's not going to get the R rating. And there's a similar sequence that I wish we could show on this, but we definitely cannot, where in both movies the lieutenant pulls somebody over and does a lewd act. And I feel as though the act in Bad Lieutenant, which is the original Bad Lieutenant, which is not as extreme as the one in the new one, comes off still a lot more raw and a lot more uncomfortable because the whole movie is grounded in such a realness and a reality. And I feel like Harvey Keitel, this was sort of his comeback after the 70s between this and Reservoir Dogs. And I feel like his performance in this, he's really good, and you can feel his conflicted nature throughout the whole thing. And it kind of reminds me of Robert De Niro's work with Scorsese in the 70s with Taxi Driver, and then later with The Raging Bull. Yeah. So I gave this movie a B+.
Nice. Well, I'm a little less a fan of this one, but mostly because a lot of the artsy stuff in this is just really long, drawn-out sequences of him yelling at Jesus. I think I find this one to be a lot more of a guy trying to go for shock value, which is what gave it its much worse rating.
Yeah.
But it's just, I feel like this movie was just kind of drawn out shock value, which became very boring after a while. I mean, it's like, okay, I mean, yeah, we have this gritty cop that's doing drugs and stuff and corrupt and stealing drugs and having weird naked dancing scenes and but yeah, that's what it does, is it just, it's like, well, here's something offensive, and then here's something offensive, let's draw it out longer and longer, and by the time you're at the movie, there's literally a 20-minute scene of him just laying on the ground in a church, yelling at Jesus. And I fell asleep almost in that part. So
wow.
I was actually giving this one a C- just because I felt that it went on way too long. But it had this great real 90s vibe to it, and I did like a lot of elements of it. But as a movie to actually watch, I was actually surprisingly bored by the shock value, which doesn't happen very often.
That is true. That doesn't happen very often. I think I know what you're talking about. The movie feels very segmented. It's just a series of scenes. But in a way, I kind of liked it for that. It was like almost like a photo montage between scenes of this guy's life, and the scene in the church I feel is very instrumental to the whole meaning of the movie, because it's that confliction that he's feeling that just keeps him from ever wanting to better himself. So.
That's true. Also, part I really didn't like was how it kind of concludes. I mean, like the actual Harvey Keitel plot line, like the character part, really good. But when they decide they need to end the nun part, what the crap was that? I mean,
it has an untraditional ending. It doesn't go exactly where you think it's going to go.
No.
But I think that was handled really well.
Yeah.
And again, it reminded me a lot of the ending of Taxi Driver, where you think he has this plan and he's so crazy, he's so coked up and everything that he is he either going to kill these guys or what's he going to do? And he doesn't go the route that you think he's going to, and I think it has a lot to do with that redemption of the character.
Yeah.
So it's not a comfortable film. It's
No, definitely not.
to say the least.